Hello, my name is Daniel Underwood and welcome to my polytunnel here in Essex in the southeast of the UK. So many of you may be aware that I'm growing a variety of plants this year, including non-hardy plants, and this includes some subtropical and also some tropical plants as well. So of course they will not tolerate cold. So I've had to implement many things in order to get them through this, what could be described as a tricky stage, and the fact that this has been described as the frostiest April in 50 years, so relatively chilly. So I'm going to show you a few things that I've grown and my first initial plantings out, and also some ways in which I'm going to be protecting them. This is later. It's a very early determinate, meaning bush tomato, and I planted these on the 25th of February, and I initially germinated them inside on a windowsill and then brought them out here probably about a month or so ago, something like that. This is variety Moskvich, which is an indeterminate vining tomato, said to be tolerant of cooler conditions. Once again planted on the 25th of February, germinated inside and then brought out here about a month or so ago. This is Sun Gold, once again an indeterminate vining tomato, planted on the 25th of February, germinated inside and then brought out here a month or so ago. And this variety, it starts to produce relatively early and then continues to produce into the autumn. Sun Gold. Gardener's Delight, an indeterminate vining tomato. I probably planted these a little bit before the other tomatoes, but I didn't write the date down. So there we are, once again germinated inside and then brought out here probably about a month or so ago. Gardener's Delight, a little cherry tomato, really sweet and tangy. Gardener's Delight. Long purple aubergine, long thin fruit, and selected for European conditions. So regarding planting these, once again I didn't write the date on, but it's probably about 6 weeks or so ago, and once again initially germinated on the windowsill and then brought out here. Always write the date on that you started to grow something, that can be very useful. Check early aubergine, quick to set fruit and crops for a long period. Crimson sweet watermelon has a growing season of about 70 to 80 days. I planted this about 7-8 weeks ago, something like that, on an indoor windowsill, and I've just brought it out today. Giant Bolivian achocha, huge vines with loads of fruit. Okra or Okra, variety Super Bindi, said to be early and super prolific. I initially germinated this on an indoor windowsill on the 20th of March and I've just brought it out here today. Chili variety Basque, respectable heat and great flavour. Bitter Melon, planted on the 14th of March, initially germinated on an indoor windowsill, and I brought it out here probably about a month or so ago, maybe 3 weeks, and you can see they too are doing well. Yard-long beans, otherwise known as snake beans or sea-tail beans, and you can see they're looking nice. Slight tinge to the leaves there, might be something I have to look into, but I planted these on the 14th of March, initially on an indoor windowsill, and brought them out here probably about a week or so ago, and there they are. This one here is a bush variety of yard-long bean, planted on the 14th of March, once again brought out here. Now, how did I protect some of these very vulnerable specimens from frost? So you can see I've got 3 containers here, 2 polystyrene ones, and this one here is like one of them storage trunks that you'd keep out in your garden. So very good, they help to keep the warmth in to protect the plants. And considering had some quite cold temperatures, you know, down to -2 degrees C, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and literally there was 1 week where I think we had a frost every night. In fact, it does seem like we've had a frost, or very close to it, every night for some time now. But basically all you do, right, it stops your plants getting leggy if you do this. So you initially germinate them, and then when they're about that sort of height, maybe 1 inch, 2 centimetres, something like that, maybe a bit bigger, bring them out here and just put them in like that. Keep the tops off during the day, then at night cover them up. So like this, for example, that's what I do, and that protects it from the frost. We're going to plant a Moskvich vining tomato. Let's have a look. Get one of these out, nice and gently. Nice root there. You can see that I initially grew these in a mixture of multi-purpose compost and sharp sand. I think it was about 3/4 of multi-purpose compost and the other quarter the sharp sand. But you see some nice roots there, and in fact they weren't growing through the bottom of the pot too much, so hopefully it's not too root bound. We will plant this Moskvich tomato. Now I'm going to be planting this in a no-dig bed here at the back of the polytunnel. I really want the plant to get big up the back here and form a real nice specimen. So literally just going to be making a hole in the compost here. I purchased this compost. Hopefully next year I won't have to buy so much compost because a lot of my own should be ready, so that'll be grand. And literally I'm going to put that in like that, not into the soil underneath, just in the growing medium on the top, and I'm going to plant it up more or less until just under the first leaves. So hopefully I'll get a really strong stem on it. So this variety is very vigorous, and you really have to make sure you pinch it out, otherwise you'd end up with sort of shoots everywhere in order to keep it tidy. So there we are, Moskvich tomato. I'm going to plant this straight into the soil here. Now the soil around here is sandy and very well draining, so tomatoes like well draining fertile soil, so should do okay here. Now going to plant it straight into the soil, so a little bit of a sort of digging, if you will, just loosening the soil around it. I don't need to make the hole too big because you see it's only a relatively small root ball. Once again planted very close to the first set of leaves in order to encourage a nice strong plant. So there we are. Now I've got my tag here, so states on it the date it was initially planted, so it was the 25th of February, the variety Moskvich, and also the date in which it's planted out, so also the 2nd of May. I find that very useful because you can always look back then. Could also be a good idea to maybe have a little notepad or something like that and write down dates, and you can always refer to that in the future. So we have a no-dig tomato here and a dig tomato here. So it should be quite interesting to see the growth comparison. The lovely root ball on this okra plant, look at that. Really well established. So I'm going to be growing it in this pot here. This is once again some of the bought compost I mentioned earlier. So just going to make a hole here. So that's going to go, and I'm going to set it relatively deep. Now it's very likely in the future that this will need some staking. Tag once again. Long purple aubergine. Check early aubergine. These are cucumbers variety Market More. So I initially planted these on the 25th of February, germinated them inside and brought them out here about a month or so ago. So you can see they haven't really gone leggy, so that's good. Now Market More is a lovely cucumber. They're a sort of a prickly cucumber and they're said to do well in pots, so that's where one of these is going. Now let's have a look. There it is, nice established root, and you can see it was starting to want to grow, maybe it even had already out the bottom of the pot there. In the pot it goes, so going to plant it relatively deep. I want it to get a nice strong stem, so we're going to push it in like so. Cucumber Market More. So of course these plants will not like to go below around 20 degrees C, which is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So the tomatoes and these, in particular these, I've got to try and keep them warm. So of course in the UK, or climate like the UK at this time of year, this can present a challenge. So how am I going to be doing this? Well, little things that you can do, right, when frosts are coming, or indeed I would recommend if you're going to be planting out at this time of year now, you really want to make sure at night you protect your plants. In fact, during the day, if necessary, it's probably over about 20 degrees C here in the polytunnel at the moment, because I really can feel the warmth. It really does make a difference during the day, but of course at night you can lose that benefit. So, you know, things like this, put it over like that. Looks a bit eccentric, but never mind if it gets your plants through. And of course you can even go the next step and you can then drape fleece over your pots like this. So this should help to keep the, keep the cold out. And there we go. So little things that you can use. The minimal temperature of about 20 degrees C, 68 degrees Fahrenheit is relatively tricky, particularly at night. Here in the UK, the night temperatures can drop, and getting 20 degrees at night can be tricky. But if you keep it between 20 and 30 during the day in a greenhouse or a polytunnel or whatever, your plants such as what I've planted out today should do well in that. So when one is planting out at this time of year, it can be a risk. So considering over the next week, we're going to be getting some nights down to about 2 degrees C, which is about 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Later in the week, it's going to warm up to minimal nighttime temperatures of around 11 degrees C, which I just can't quite work out the conversion right now, but I'll put it on the screen below. So certainly chilly. So as I stated, it is a risk. You've seen some methods that I'm going to be using to protect them, but they do say don't put tender plants out until the end of May. So that would be good advice. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm doing it as a bit of fun. I like to try out new things because I believe if we don't try out new things, then we don't find out new things. So this is what I'm doing here. And also you do have to remember that the amount of things that I've grown, you've seen some of them, I have got plenty to replace should anything go wrong with these. And of course, some of you may not have that much grown, and if you lose something, it really could be upsetting. So you need to make sure that your risk to benefit ratio, for the sake of waiting another week or two, however long, you may be better to wait, particularly if you are living in a cooler part of the UK, or indeed a cooler part of the world in general. I mean, I know in some parts of the world they don't stop getting frosts until into June, so look into it. These are runner beans, variety Scala tempera. They're a red flowering variety. So I actually planted these on the 28th of March, and I germinated them out here in these very cell trays. So temperatures down to -2 degrees C, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, but they have still germinated. So we have had some relatively warm days, in amongst it as well. So of course the temperature in the polytunnel does get warmer. So the cold temperatures at night, yes, but then they do bounce back during the day. So you can see, certainly hasn't adversely affected these at all. Now, last year, for instance, around here, we had our last frost in April. So if this was last year, I'd probably be planting these out, but going to be leaving them another week or two. These are dwarf beans, variety tender green. They're a bush variety. Once again, same treatment as the runner beans, planted on the 28th of March, and look at those. So I'm going to show you some curiosities I'm growing. Now here we have Cherokee Trail of Tears beans. Now I'll let you look at those. So I planted them on the 14th of April, and I'm very excited about those. Cherokee Trail of Tears. And here we have some double red sweet corn planted on the 12th of April. Siberian Lights watermelon planted on the 18th of April out here in the polytunnel. So I've germinated it out here. I'll show you how I did that. So I've got them planted in pots underneath these containers here. These are the sort of containers you get fruit in, and they're in the pot with the container over the top, so that acts like another little greenhouse. Under here I have Blacktail Mountain watermelon planted on the 18th of April, once again out here in the polytunnel, and you can see I've got them in the propagator there, and I just put that over the top like that. That further acts to the insulation and helps to keep them warmer. Many are back in these containers for another week or two. Hello, so loads of videos coming up on planting out, planting, propagation, exotics, etc. So if you'd like to be notified of when those videos come up, please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell, and you can also share my work and you can like it as well if indeed you would like to. So see you in the next video. Thank you very much for viewing and enjoy your bank holiday weekend.